right. Well, you read the title. Let's get into it.
Since the pandemic, many women got into host clubs.
イケメンに会いたいから。
俺みたいな。
And the malicious practices have been exposed a lot as a serious social issue in Japan, which led the police and government to finally starting take action.
人生を狂わされるケースや被害者が自死に追い込まれる被害も出ています。
この若い女性も守っていくのかなどを考えていきたいという。
So to be honest, I didn't really feel the need to report this issue anymore. And prior to the interview, I was expecting and hoping to hear the situations getting better.
増えてる目立たんだけなんであの手この手でホストが入り込んでるから SNS やマッチングアプリやら婚活大学のサークルとかどこでも、混じり込んでるでホストって最初から見明かさずに引っ掛けて喋ってるけどもまずホストに行くな歌舞伎町に来るなって言ってもネットで引っかかったら会えるなら1回だけでもその1回が終わりやって
And he told me this is how the industry still profits.
Okay. Interessant. It's actually kind of, how do you put it? It's kind of, to me, anyway, it seems more like a symptom of a much bigger problem. And the reason why I'm saying this is because from my understanding about Japan, from the little bit that I know, not apparently, but the culture over there is a bit more, how do you put it? I think it's like you work for the collective. So you're in like, I'll explain in a minute what this means. But essentially, people kind of like forego their own feelings for the collective. And so in doing that, people tend not to focus on themselves too much. And they have a term that's, well, we call it over here, it's called like a NEAT, like no essential skills or training or something like that. Here, over there, it's called like a hikokomori, like someone who's just by themselves all the time. And they're depicted as like, very lonely people who always just, by themselves or whatnot. And so, from what I'm seeing here, it looks like somebody, as it happens every time, where they just come in and just exploit. That's literally what I'm seeing here. Nothing really much else to it. And I'll say this too. I remember I read this study or whatever, or I watched this video. I couldn't find it for the life of me. But it was really interesting, where it was like, I think someone did like a little focus group on like night walkers or ex-workers, and essentially what the people were looking for wasn't really so much the actual sex itself. They were looking for intimacy, like companionship, which is kind of interesting to think about because there's like prevalence of people being lonely or whatnot in Japan. It's no stranger to that, but it's just interesting how, like, if you think about it and you connect the dots, people are can be looking for intimacy, and there's a huge market for exploiting that. Like a massive market for exploiting people who want to be intimate with somebody else. Because if you think about it this way too, like, especially if you're working, you have so much stuff to do, you have so much stuff that you have to get through, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, I don't have time for like relationships. So then someone comes along and says, hey, I have a solution for you. People tend to gravitate towards that. So, well, this doesn't surprise me in the slightest. However, it's interesting how it actually is a bit more like, I don't know, prevalent over there as well. But let's keep watching because I'm actually intrigued.
With hosts as they diversify the marketing to rural ways. And even though Tokyo is starting to regulate it and some of them actually arrested for it, many of them do it outside of Tokyo or Shinjuku and clever enough to skirt the law and police.
新宿では厳しくなってるけども、ほらよそはやりたい放題。隅々におる増えてる。みんな隅っこは行ってる。でもう500件以上、日本に北海道から熊本まで。男が借金して店で借金払いする売り掛けな
ああそれが禁止になった
なってない建て替え金名前が変わって建て替え金売り掛け金がなくなっただけそれか店入る前にサラ金とか闇金で金を100万借金作って店入って現金払い詐欺師いうか悪どいやつほど先に考える
And she's eventually driven into sex work. Not only that, but swindling men, which have been overlooked but more and more common nowadays, as the police getting stricter on prostitution or illegal sex work.
Okay, so this is literally like, it is, well, I'm just gonna call it what it is. It's prostitution, just under a different coat. That is crazy to think about. But I mean, are we really surprised? Like I just said earlier, people literally will find a way to exploit, and even worse now, what's even more context with this is that you have a market, you have people who are like in debt, and then boom, you get profit. And then even if you, and it goes to show, even in the video they said, oh, we raised the taxes around this area. That's great, but people are going to move out. And even if say all of Japan bans it or whatever, people are probably going to go to another country. It's actually like there's no limits to what a scammer can do and what they're and what they're doing. So there's always a way out. So what you really have to do, at least from what I'm understanding, but do not take this as me being some economic expert. But the idea is that you have to make an incentive for people to want to go to like somewhere else in the first place. So because like cost of living is high and all this stuff is all really high, if you somehow lessen that, then sometimes as consequences you actually can get what's the word I'm looking for? You can get less people into this stuff. Because I even remember I was watching another video where it was like, when it came to like reducing like drug addicts in some areas, like sometimes you have to remove the people from the area, but sometimes if you introduce like clean centers or whatever, it actually incentivizes people from getting less stuff off the street, and then you get slowly more to rehab or whatever. But it's not a one-stop solution. There's a lot of other stuff, but yikes. That's kind of crazy though. Like imagine that. And if I remember correctly too, I wonder how this affects like tourists who go there, because now that's a whole new market. Instead of just Japanese people, you have like tourists going to Japan and being like, oh, I can actually I can exploit tourists and charge them even more. So really pieces of garbage all around. But Jesus Christ, I actually did not see that coming.
この頂き女子、これがなぜ増えているのか。
人妻 JK 魔法少女リリちゃん
She was one of those addicted to hosts and cheating three innocent men out of huge money, which all went to a host who knew the money coming from dating scams. And that's basically what she also did, as well as prostitution.
最初は風俗だけをやってたんですけど、それだけでは足りないなという感じにすぐになって、マッチングアプリで出会った男性のうちの一人ですね。病気の妹と母がいるのでサポートしなきゃいけないみたいなことを言って、その人は全部で400万以上は、結局はそれで稼いだ全部900万をホストに払ってしまいましたね。
Also, the
You know what's really fascinating about this? You probably guys, maybe you guys like might not see it, but it's how do I put it? You know how oh, that's the best way to put it. Oh my goodness. It's hard to put into words, but I'll try my best here. But what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to stuff like people getting into this stuff, you'll always notice there's a common pattern in every single one of these people who get stuck into like these rings or whatever, or in this case like hosting. I put that in heavy air quotation marks, or into hosting. It's always people who are like, sorry, not always, but it's mostly people who are disadvantaged, are lacking like some kind of like support structure, and some people who are just generally very vulnerable. That's really like, whoosh, that's really what I've noticed about this whole these whole incidents or whatever. Even if you go back to like Andrew Tate, what did Andrew Tate do to get people into his like webcamming business? He'd make the women fall in love with him by his own volition, by the way. He said all this, but make them fall in love with him, and then isolate them, and then he would then make them do what they want and be like, oh, you get to be with me if you do this for me. And it's like, okay. And that's how they get stuff done. So it's really, really, it's really fascinating to me how every single, like, a lot of common trends when it comes to, like, exploiting people, you'll see it's a very common pattern. And it's really just preying on people. So this person, honestly, even though she swindled men and swindled a lot of money, she is a victim in her own right. Just because of, like, how someone gave him a proposition, be like, okay, you do this for me, and I give you this. But then exploitation goes over and over and over and over and over again. That's why, in my opinion, that is basically slavery. Like, it's modern day slavery. To me. And then people will, of course, push the envelope. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's actually watch a bit more.
3年でボロボロになったら来いや。
それ回復するのは結構時間
ないな。
ないです。
もうないな。もうそれは子供面体になってボロボロになって精神破壊して3時ぐらいで親が引き取るやつ。
親御さんたちは全く気づかなかったの？
だってみんな親は地方におって地方から大学東京に送り込んだり、まさかホストって分かるわけないやんか。それはホストでハマってたやつや。風俗デリ働いてるから学業もどこも行けへんやん。男の場合ってほら200、300も言うて取れる金額しかつけさせへんわな。スナックなんかだったら5万10万、女性売れるやんか。まして成人年齢が20歳から18下がったら新鮮度がいっぱいあるから買い手がいっぱいおるわけな。そうまで働かして性売春。
ホストクラブとかスナックバーって日本文化多いと思うんですけど、そこに行くとすごい気分が良くなるっていうのをよく聞くんですね。すごい褒められて社長さんみたいに扱われて話も聞いてくれる。じゃあ家に帰るとそういう相手がいない。だからついそこにお金を払って承認欲求を満たしてもらう。最初は1,000円だよとか、最初1時間で2,000円だけとか安く入れるんですよね。あ、意外とそんなね気軽なんだ。特に18歳9歳ってやっぱ知らないからつい騙されちゃう。その人を信じちゃうのがあるの。
Damn. Really, damn. That is a lot to take in because she literally is like, I don't even want to go. I'll go as far as say like this is literally brainwashing. But interestingly enough, as I said earlier, you'll find this a lot in like people who are just being taken advantage of in general. It's kind of like your brain is telling you like, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this because, this person loves me. This person is giving me this. He's providing for me, even if it's like entirely abusive. And that's why sometimes you'll notice that people who are stuck in some really like garbage situations, they don't want to leave it because it's all they know. And some people can't take the jump out. And even here, they said like, do these people recover from this stuff? No, that's not likely. So I'm just seeing this as someone who is like, it's just someone who's been taken advantage of. It's already like a shitty situation. So it gets even shittier the more you look at it. So, woo, god damn, yeah. Anyways, you should really check out this whole video. I don't have all of it because I actually encourage you guys to go watch it yourself. It's actually pretty interesting. But yeah. Anyways, let's wrap this up because I'm actually curious about something else.
その時はなかったです。その代わり幸せな時間を与えてるというか、でも自分もこう捨てられてボロボロになった今となっては本当にその男性には申し訳ないなという気持ちで、その恋愛の感情を利用したっていうのは私もされたっていうことですごい傷ついたので。
リリちゃんは自分が詐欺してるっていう自認じゃなくて、おじさんを助けてるっていう認知だった。おじさんに幸せな時間を提供してるっていう認知を自分が罪悪感とかに埋もれちゃわないように自分の中に作り上げてて、だからいただきっていう単語も詐欺じゃなくていただきって使ってるし、自己洗能力というか言語化能力みたいなところに結構感心しました。
The industry has been super competitive and they are desperate to get on top, which is heavily based on how much money their clients spend. To add up the bill, they provide you a lot of pricey options, which most young women couldn't pay back. Actually, the main customers of this host club are in their early 20s.
いわゆる1億円売るっていうのが一つのこのステータスなんですよね。我々の業界の一人で1年間通じて。この SNS という部分でも売れてる子ほどもう寝ずに更新したりとか売り上げ上げるための労力っていうのはやっぱすごいなと、努力っていうのはすごいしてるなと思いますね。はい。営業終わって一緒にアフターで飲みに行くとか、じゃあ休日どっか出かけるとか、一緒に住んでる人とかも、ホストは24時間ホストって言われてるんで、本当にいつ何時電話かかってきても別に出た方がいいしとか。3年ぐらい通ってます。はい。結構友達とかには穏やかに接するんですけど、この人にはすごい感情的にぶつけます。彼氏がいたとしても来ますか？来ると思います。単純にやっぱモテちゃうんで、やっぱこういう業界で売れてる人間とかって相手の喜ぶこともわかりますし、欲しい言葉とか、日本人の男性の方ってまだ下手な方も多いんで、してもらえないであろう言葉とか、そういうのを体感できるっていうのが、一番強いんじゃないかな。
Okay, so this is a classic case of supply and demand and exploitation. So you want something from me, I give it to you, and then I exploit you for it. and it's like a whole continuous cycle. Mind you, this is an issue that has many layers into it, like a lot. So I can't cover it in this video, but put it shortly, like Japan has always, from my knowledge, always had an issue of like lonely people in general, and like people are always trying to, work to get to where they want to be, but then people will, as I say, cheaters creep into the system. Cheaters will always creep in and find a way to exploit that. And so that's what we have right now. I mean, it's honestly sad, but that's just the reality that we live in, where people are always going to find a way to exploit somebody. And in this case, Japan's hosts are exploiting. It's funny. They exploit the women, then the women exploit the men, and then they are the ones who profit. Similar to like how like on OnlyFans in the DMs, okay, the model is not messaging you. It's probably some dude they hired to message you back. And so, in this whole like epidemic of loneliness, what I've just seemed to notice is that people will find a way to exploit it. Hell, even if we were in an epidemic of companionship, people would probably find a way to exploit it. So there's always going to be someone who's going to cross the line regardless. But this one is really bad because you have a rise in like people not wanting to be in relationships or whatever. You have a rise of single people, you have a rise of a lot of lonely people. And so eventually at this point, we're going to be in the Blade Runner 2049 universe where you have a whole AI girlfriend or whatever. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's actually a thing in Japan. Not that I mentioned it. Pretty sure AI girlfriends are a thing in Japan, actually. Anyways, it only goes downhill from here, in my opinion. But to solve an issue like this, it's going to take some time. But anyways, that's enough talking from me. If you enjoy this type of content, if you want to react to some more videos like this one, leave a like and leave a comment down below. Leave a dislike if you want to, but that's it for me. So, heading in.